Snail. Snail by Karen Hartley and Chris Macro. Whoa, there's the table of contents. We're going to learn a lot about snails. What are snails? Snails have a soft body and carry a hard shell. They do not have any legs. Some snails live in water, but in this book we will be looking at snails that live in gardens and woods. Snails come in different sizes and have shells of different colors. Some snails are very small. Some are very big. This is a giant African land snail. It can grow to be longer than your foot. Snails have a thick, soft foot that they can pull into their hard shell. Each ring on the shell is called a whorl. The soft foot usually feels damp and slimy. Snails have a mouth under their head and a breathing hole under their shell. The short antennae are used for touch and smell. The long ones have two tiny eyes at the end. How big are snails? Adult garden snails are about as long as one of your middle fingers when they are moving. Baby snails are about the size of your little fingernail. Snails are much smaller when they are inside their shells. As snails grow, their shells get bigger. How are snails born? Snails make a hole in the soil and lay eggs there. They usually lay about 40 eggs at a time. The eggs are white. After about 21 days, the eggs hatch and the baby snails begin to move around. They have little shells and very pale bodies. How do snails grow? The snail's body gets darker as it gets older. In the first year, the shell has about 3 whorls. Can you see them? The snail is fully grown when it is about 2 years old. It will have about 5 whorls on its shell. What do snails eat? Snails like to eat dead leaves or plants which are brown and smelly. If there are no dead leaves, then snails will eat fresh green plants. Sometimes snails eat the green algae off the branches of trees. Some snails will even eat other snails, but they would rather eat plants. Which animals attack snails? Snails' predators usually attack at night. Rats, large beetles, and ducks like to eat snails. Some birds break open the snail's shell on stones and then peck at the soft body. When a snail senses it is in danger, it will hide in its shell. Sometimes it makes froth come out from under the shell to scare off its attackers. Where do snails live? Many snails live in gardens. They also live in woods, bushes, and grass. They like damp, dark places. You can often find snails under stones. After it has been raining, you may see them climbing up walls. Snails can cling very tightly to walls and stones. How do snails move? Snails move slowly. They move more quickly when it is warm and wet. The muscles in the foot make the snail move. Can you see the muscles in this foot? Snails make slime to help them slide over bumpy paths and stones. They make more slime when they are going uphill or are on bumpy ground. How long do snails live? If snails live where there are many predators, they do not live for very long. Can you see the empty shells? The snails have been eaten. Some garden snails can live for 5 years. Some desert snails can stay in their shells for years without eating or moving. They live much longer than busy garden snails. What do snails do? Snails come out when the weather is damp. When the weather is very hot, snails stop eating and bury themselves. Snails will also hide if the weather is very cold. Snails mostly look for food at night. It is safer in the dark. How are snails special? Snails can smell strong smells through their antennae. If a snail smells something it does not like, it goes into its shell. Sometimes snails like to stay very close together. When snails hibernate for the winter or when it is hot, they make a skin over the opening of the shell. This is called the epiphragm. Thinking about snails. Which food do you think the snail will like best? What are the snail's antennae used for? Which surface do you think the snail will like best? Will the snail make more slime when it is moving on the carpet or on the smooth wood? What would make it easier to move? Snail map. Shell, soft body, breathing hole, eyes, antennae for feeling and smelling. The end.